What is up, you spooky bitches? We are back and we have another episode of the Hello Sidney podcast here, a podcast for horror lovers where we discuss any and all things horror. And it's me, your girl, Sidney. We got a new mic set up so I don't have to hold the thing all the time. We still haven't gotten the wall set up, but we're going to get there, guys. We're getting there. The couch is here again. That is all that matters. Actually, you probably won't see the finished product until October because I have to film the next 4 episodes like back to back this week because on Wednesday, I leave for Fantastic Fest for about 10 days. So this is what you're going to get for the rest of the month. But guys, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be great. And again, you get to look at the couch. That's the best thing that anybody could ever imagine. We are continuing our Stephen King month this episode with talking about Cujo, which Cujo was a Stephen King novel that he wrote and published in 1981, and the movie adaptation was made in 1983. And Stephen King actually has said that he was so deeply in the grips of his alcohol addiction at this point that he does not remember writing this book. And that's just so crazy to me because imagine having that much talent that even being in a constant state of blackout stupor, you can still write something this good and something good enough to be made into a movie adaptation. Like, I'm so glad that he is in recovery and he's sober. But every time he says things like that, because he says it pretty frequently, like especially he doesn't remember directing that movie Maximum Overdrive he did. He doesn't remember writing certain books. It's like, you did this blacked out and you were still able to do it. It's actually insane. But he was inspired to write Cujo when he was at the mechanic getting his motorcycle fixed and he encountered a very intimidating looking dog. And thus was born the idea of Cujo. And that's another reason I really admire that man because he can take just your basic everyday experiences and turn them into something so terrifying. And if you ask me, what happens in Cujo is really terrifying and really fucking sad. And the book, I think, is even sadder, but we'll get to that. But without further ado, let's jump into Cujo. So again, the movie came out in 1983. It's about an hour and 33 minutes long. It has a 6.1 on IMDb and a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it seems that the critics on both sites agree, which I feel like doesn't happen a whole lot. And I think that's honestly a fair rating. I don't think this is a phenomenal movie. I do love this movie. And I do think that Dee Wallace's performance is one of the best performances in a horror movie ever. But we'll get to that. So Cujo opens up and we're in the woods and we see this little rabbit just minding its own business in a field when suddenly this large, slobbery St. Bernard dog shows up behind the rabbit and starts chasing it. And this chase ensues between the two of them. He chases it into a field and eventually the rabbit runs into this little cave. It's like underneath a tree, this little mini cave, and he can go in, but obviously this giant 200-pound St. Bernard cannot. So this dog is obviously going to be Cujo. And Cujo sticks his head into this cave and he can see the rabbit and he starts barking. And as he's barking, we see that he awakens a bunch of bats, which is not good. So he awakens a bunch of bats and they start screeching. And multiple of these bats start flying all over the place. And Cujo is now barking at the bats. And one of these bats lands on his nose and bites him, which causes Cujo to whimper. And he backs up. So we're starting this immediately. We know that Cujo just contracted rabies. Like, that's what the whole thing is going to be about. So we then cut to a house and we see this little boy whose name is going to be Tad. And he is honestly just the cutest little kid ever. Like, he's absolutely adorable. And he goes back to his room from the bathroom. It's nighttime, so it's dark out. And he sees his closet door open on its own, like it creaks open a bit, and he goes over and he closes it, and then he does the thing that we all did as kids. He gets ready to turn his light switch off and then run to his bed, and like he fakes out one time because he thinks he turns it but he doesn't actually hit the switch, so he goes back and eventually he turns the light off and he runs and he jumps into his bed and he gets under his cover. So obviously he's scared of something, and he looks at his closet, which is at the foot of his bed, and it creaks open again, and Tad looks inside and we only see that it's pure darkness in there, but Tad screams and he starts screaming for his mom, and his dad and his mom come in, and his dad and mom are going to be Donna and Vic Trenton. Donna is played by Dee Wallace, and he tells them that something is in my closet, and his dad starts checking, and when he goes to close the closet door, it seems like it doesn't latch properly, so like logically that's why it keeps opening, but of course in a kid's mind there's no logical explanation for that. But Tad keeps insisting that he saw something with big yellow eyes and big teeth in the closet. And his parents keep telling him, I think you just dreamed it. There's no such thing as real monsters. So they comfort him and they tuck him in and they leave him. And when he's alone, he says, yeah, except the one in my closet. So he does believe that there is something in his closet. And we cut to the next morning and they're all having breakfast like a normal family. And there's a bunch of chairs and stuff stacked in front of Tad's closet. And down at breakfast, his dad is like, oh, I wonder who stacked all that stuff in front of your closet. And Tad's like, wasn't me. And they all kind of laugh about it. Like, you can tell they seem to be a very loving, close-knit family. And suddenly there's a knock on the door. And this is going to be this guy, Steve, who is kind of like the local handyman. He's like fixing a table for them or something. And the second she hears his voice, Donna kind of tenses up. And you can tell by her movement that there's something going on with that. But her husband doesn't really notice it at this point. And as they're all sitting down for breakfast, this Sharp cereal commercial comes on TV. And Tad tells Steve, oh, my daddy invented that. And it's a commercial for this cereal called Raspberry Zingers. And Steve eventually leaves and the commercial keeps playing. And it's like this professor who is holding the cereal and he's like, nope, nothing wrong here, as he shows the cereal bowl. So we eventually cut and we see Vic playing tennis with Steve. So in addition to being the local handyman, he also plays tennis with Vic. And we cut to some time later and we see Steve in bed with Donna. So this trifling motherfucker is having an affair on her husband, and this other trifling motherfucker is fucking the wife of the guy he plays tennis with. What is going on? Now, Dee Wallace, who plays Donna, and Christopher Stone, who plays Steve, were actually married in real life at this point, and I don't think this was the first or only movie that they were in together, but they are married, and they were married until he passed away in 1995. So we see Donna get up out of bed, and this part is so funny to me because she is wearing a nightgown that like literally is a turtleneck. Like it goes up to her throat, and she gets out of bed and like goes into the next room and like puts her underwear on, and it's like, did you really just fuck in that nightgown? Like, first of all, that's really hot, like temperature wise. It's not hot, actually. I mean, I'm not hating, like I'm not trying to kink shame, but it's just so funny to me. I'm like, Donna, my girl, what are you doing? So sometime later, we see Donna at dinner with her husband and her son. And you can tell that there's some tension between Donna and Vic and in their marriage. And he brings up, like, maybe we should talk about having another baby. Like, it almost gives the implication that, like, he thinks maybe that's going to save the relationship, which from what I hear, it never does. So, I mean, that's not really going to help him, but he can tell that something is wrong. And eventually the next day he goes into town because he has to go to the mechanic because his car is having an issue with the front wheel. And he asks the mechanic, like, are you going to be able to look at it today? And he's like, no, like, I'm not going to be able to get to it today. Sorry, maybe in a couple days. And as Vic is leaving, like kind of disappointed about that, he runs into the mailman, the local mailman. And the mailman tells him, Joe Camber will look at it for you. And he's like, who is this Joe Camber and where is he? And he directs him to where he lives. So Vic ends up going to Joe's at a different point, and Donna and Tad are with him. And he meets Joe. Donna says hi to Joe's wife, and she offers them drinks. She seems like a sweet lady. And suddenly Donna sees Cujo approaching, and this ominous music plays as he's approaching too. And she sees this giant 200-pound St. Bernard, and she panics, and she goes to grab Tad. And Joe's son, whose name is Brett, is like, oh, Cujo won't hurt him. He likes kids, and he's petting Cujo, and Cujo's all friendly. So Donna lets Tad down, and he goes over and he starts petting Cujo too. And Cujo's like a very good boy. Like, he's just letting the kids pet him. And Donna looks and notices this scratch on his nose. And it's not even as much of a scratch as it is like an open wound on the dog's nose. It's very obvious. So later that night, Vic and Donna go to bed. You can once again tell that there's some tension between the two of them. Like, this relationship is kind of rocky. And sometime later, we see that there is a news report playing, and it is about how people have been reporting internal hemorrhaging after eating Sharp cereal products, but then they go on to say that it was a false alarm. So this is like a much bigger point in the book. Like, it doesn't touch as much about this, but basically, and they do mention it a little bit later, but basically, like, the cereal, the Raspberry Zingers are dyed red, like they have red dye in them, and kids started like vomiting red And like parents were assuming that they were vomiting up blood, so they went to the hospital thinking their kids had internal hemorrhaging. And basically it's like a whole fucking thing, and the cereal gets recalled. And that's what happens here too. So Vic angrily turns off the TV and then says to Donna like they recalled the whole cereal, and he's venting to Donna about it because it was his marketing campaign that led to this. And like he again came up with the cereal, and it's at this point that he says too, like, kids are puking red dye and like shitting out red dye, and their parents are freaking out. And Donna like assures him, you'll work it out, you always do. And his coworker Roger calls him to talk about it because obviously like they're kind of in some shit right now. So we cut to Vic at work, and he's sitting with Roger, and they're both on the phone, and Vic is being yelled at by somebody. We can't hear exactly what they're saying, but we can hear that they're yelling. And this person tells him, we're having a special board meeting next week and you need to be here, and Roger needs to be here too. So Vic says this to Roger, like they have no choice. They have to go. So we cut back to Joe Camber's residence, and we see Cujo laying outside, and Joe is welding in the garage. And at the sound of it, Cujo looks up and he just looks uncomfortable. He starts whimpering. He just looks not well. And eventually he walks away. Like this loud noise is really upsetting him. Now, we cut back to Donna, and she goes to Steve's house, and she's not going to do it in her nightgown this time. This time, she's going to end things, and she tells him that I can't see you anymore. And when he asks why, she's like, I have a great husband and a great kid, and like here I am screwing around with you. Like it's just over. It was a stupid mistake. And he is very calm. He says, okay, whatever you want. And she says sorry, and she leaves. But then suddenly he jumps out of bed angry. Like he is not this calm. And he eventually like chases after her, and he has his shirt off, and he chases her outside to her car. And as this is happening, Vic is also happening to drive by, and he watches as Steve like goes out and grabs his wife, and he drives by quick, but he's like, what the fuck? So he turns his car around, but by the time he drives back, they're gone. She's gone. He's gone. But obviously that makes him suspicious of what's going on. And we cut to Donna, and she looks just stressed out after this whole interaction. And she's picking up Tad at school, and it's summer. So he's actually like at summer camp, not school. But eventually on the way home, the car that Donna is in, it's different from Vic's car, but her car is not working well either, and it keeps stalling. Now, eventually they get home. Vic greets them, and Donna tells him about the car. She's like, my car is giving me trouble again. And he's like, I'll take it to Joe Camber's tomorrow. And he sends Tad away because he wants to ask Donna, what did you do today? And she is just like, oh, you know, the usual. And then she immediately changes the subject, and she kind of walks away and walks inside. And Vic looks suspicious. So again, like we know he's kind of onto her at this point. So we cut back to Cujo, and we see that he's asleep, but he is heavy breathing, and he gets up when he hears a car. And when he wakes up, we can see that his eyes are bloodshot. There's just like these fluids coming out of his face. Like there's just like mucus and like pus running down his eyes. Like he just looks unwell, and he starts growling at this car, and eventually he just goes and hides under the porch. And Joe comes in, and he looks at his wife, and he's like, what the fuck is that outside? And she's like, oh, I got you a new hydraulic hoist, whatever the fuck that is. And he starts like swearing at her and yelling at her like he's pissed. And he's like, we can't afford it. And she puts down the plate that she's holding, and she pulls out a ticket, and she's like, I won the lottery. And she shows him that she won $5,000 in the lottery, which in 2024 would be equivalent to about $17,000. So like she won a good chunk of money. And Joe like doesn't honestly seem impressed at all. He just says, thanks. Like it's almost like he's mad that she has more money than him now, that she just did this for the family because he wants to be the main provider. You don't see him like physically abuse her in this movie, but he is much more abusive in the book towards her and towards his son. Now, his wife insists. She's like, well, I gave you a gift, so I want you to give me something back. I want to go away for a week to go visit my sister in Connecticut. And Joe just kind of looks at her. Now, we cut to Joe, and he's with his friend Gary, and Cujo is inside with the both of them. He's laying on the floor, and Joe makes a joke about sicking Cujo on Gary. And Gary is like, are you kidding me? You couldn't sick that dog on me if I was coming at you with 2 razors in my hands. Like, basically, because Cujo's a good dog, and everybody knows it. Like, Cujo's not going to hurt anybody. And we see that Cujo gets startled by loud noises as they're talking, like, and they're kind of like moving things around. Like he's not well. And the guys talk about what Joe is going to do when his wife is gone. So he is letting his wife go to Connecticut, and he's basically talking about how he's going to like just like engage in debauchery. Like he's just going to be a fucking lowlife. So we cut to Vic, who on the complete opposite side of Joe is a great father and husband, and he pulls up to the school that Tad is at summer camp at, and Tad sees him and runs up to him. Like you can tell he really loves his father, and like Vic is a really good dad, just the way he interacts with Tad. Like he is a great father, and he's like, "Are you liking summer camp?" And Tad says that he's not having fun, and Vic is like, "Okay, then we're going home. Like, I'm taking you home. We're going to hang out." Like, he's just like a really nice dad. And Donna is home. We see her home by herself before they get home. And this ominous music plays as somebody approaches her from behind. And sure enough, it's Steve. And he startles her and he tells her that he misses her. And he starts to grab her and she like gets mad at him and is trying to fight him off. And he starts to very aggressively kiss her and like lift up her dress. And she again fights him off. And in the commotion, this glass of milk and like these eggs fall off the counter and shatter. So there's a mess everywhere. And she tells him to leave. And as she's telling him to leave, Tad comes in and he sees the mess. And Steve is there and Vic comes in and Vic sees the mess and he sees Steve and he sees his wife like crying and upset. And now he officially knows. Like he absolutely knows at this point. And he sends Tad outside and everybody else just looks awkward as fuck. And Steve tries to be like, "Oh, I brought your table." And Donna's like, "Steve, just leave. Like, just get out of here." And Donna cleans the mess and Vic simply just looks at her and says, "Yes or no. Like, you can't fucking hide this from me anymore." And Donna just looks at him and says, "Yes." And he walks out. Like, he's very calm about the whole thing, which honestly I think is scarier when people are like this calm about you having an affair. So eventually we cut to Vic outside, and even after knowing that his wife is a trifling hoe, he's outside trying to fix her car. And he eventually gets aggravated when he can't do it, and as he's trying to do this, Tad is telling him, like, "I don't want you to leave," because it turns out he's leaving for 10 days to go on this work trip for the whole cereal debacle. And Tad keeps saying things to him, and Vic, like, kind of yells at Tad at this point. Like, he's obviously displacing his anger, and Tad is like, "Who's going to say the monster words?" This poor little boy. And it's at this point that Vic, like, goes back to being, like, a good dad, and he's like, "I'm sorry I yelled at you." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to write them down, and I'll hang them on your bedroom wall so that your mom can read them to you." And he promises that to Tad, that he's going to do that, because he reads these little monster words to Tad every night before bed since he's been scared of what's in his closet. And it's like, "Nope, no monsters in here," or like, "Monsters, get out of Tad's room. You don't belong here." Like, it's just this cute little thing that helps Tad go to bed. So Donna calls Tad in to come take a nap, and Vic tells her, "I couldn't fix your car, but I'll take it to Joe's tomorrow." And Donna is like, "Don't worry, like, I can take it. I'll take care of it." And we cut to Tad asleep in his room, and we pan to the monster words hanging on his closet. So his dad has written them down and hung them up like he said. So we now cut back to Joe's house, and we see that there is this like dense fog that has come upon the land. And Brett, the kid, goes outside and he's looking for Cujo. He starts calling his name, and eventually he gets kind of into the woods and he can hear Cujo whimpering. But then suddenly that whimpering turns into growling as he starts to come out of the fog and walk towards Brett. And we see that he is just like wet and he's bloody and slobbering and like, again, like mucus and pus just coming from his eyes. And Brett like obviously can tell that he's not well. And he's like, "What's the matter, Cujo?" And Cujo starts barking at him. And Brett is very confused because, again, Cujo's like a very big, gentle boy. Like, he doesn't act like this. And Brett tries to talk to him and Cujo simply just looks at him and walks away as Brett calls after him. And in the book, let me tell you, this shit is so much sadder because obviously, like, we can tell that Cujo is being infected with rabies and he's becoming angry. He's becoming rabid and he's losing sight of who he cares about. Like, he obviously loves this boy. And this part is sad because this says to me, like, as much as he wants to attack him, there's still some Cujo in there that's like, "No, I can't attack him. Like, I love him." And this is so much sadder in the book. And if there's like one Stephen King book you're going to read, just kidding, I might not say it's Cujo, but that's definitely up there, especially if you're an animal lover, because this one will rip your heart out because a lot of it is told from the perspective of the dog, which sounds like it could be a little bit cheesy, but it's not. It actually, like, to me, really put me into the story and made me feel so bad because I'm an animal lover, and basically, like, you can read how Cujo, he's losing his mind. Like, he's losing it. And he, at one point, I remember him being like, I love the boy and I don't want to hurt the boy. Like, why does Cujo want to hurt the boy? Like, Cujo's a good boy. Like, he's literally like having that internal dialogue, the dog is, and it makes me cry every time. I can't. It's just so sad because, again, like, he's such a good boy and he does love his family. Like, he loves Brett especially, and he's like, why am I having these feelings? Like, I want to hurt him. Like, I don't understand. Like, he's confused. He doesn't know what's happening to him. So back at the Trenton residence, we see Vic getting ready to leave, and he gets in the car and he tells Donna, like, I'm sorry, I didn't have time to take your car to Joe's. And she's like, don't worry, like, I'll take care of it. And they all say goodbye and he drives away. And Donna calls after him and he stops and she runs after the car and he goes to him and she says, it was over before I told you. Like, I really just wanted to be sure that you knew that. And I can't make that it never happened. And Vic is just like, yeah, I can't either. And I don't know what I'm going to do. And he says bye to her and he drives away. And like, honestly, shout out to Vic. On top of being like a great father and husband, like the fact that you are still like standing by your wife after she was just fucking your local fucking handyman who you also play tennis with, like, fuck this bitch. So at the Camber residence, we see that they're also leaving and Brett and Joe are putting suitcases in the car and the mom packs up and Brett goes in and tells her that I'm worried about Cujo. Like, I saw him earlier in the fog and he was bloody and foaming at the mouth and I want to tell Dad. And the mom is like, nope, do not tell Dad. Like, it'll be fine. We'll call him tonight and ask how Cujo is. Like, it'll be fine. So Brett is going as well. So this is leaving just Joe by himself. And we hear this ominous kind of music play as Cujo walks through a field, breathing heavily as the sun starts to go down. So we cut to Joe's friend Gary from earlier, the one who said like, oh, you couldn't sick that dog on me if I was coming at you with 2 razors. And we see him outside of his house and he's just like dumping some trash. And suddenly he hears a growl and Cujo emerges and looks at him. And Gary looks back at Cujo confused because, again, Cujo's a good boy. Like, this is not his character. And he asks him what he's growling at. And he notices that Cujo has like this mucus all over his face. Like, it's all running down. And there is a mistake at this point in the movie because as he's standing there growling at him, Cujo's tail wags a little bit. And for this movie, there were 5 different St. Bernards that played Cujo, in addition to a man in a dog suit and a mechanical head for like the attack scenes, because it's a St. Bernard. Like, they're not angry. Like, they don't attack people. But this is one of the moments where you can see his tail wag a little bit, because usually they would have to tie their tail down to their legs, like put a little like elastic around it, because the dogs were just so happy, like, which makes this a lot better. Like, they obviously aren't rabid or in danger. St. Bernards are gentle giants, and they were just like so happy to be around people. Their tails were wagging constantly, so they had to tie him down. But you do get a moment of it here because like the thing must have like gotten loose or something. So Gary can tell that something is not right here. So he kind of panics and he runs, and Cujo immediately starts barking and running after him. And Gary falls, and Cujo jumps on top of him and just starts attacking him. And Gary is screaming, and eventually he manages to throw Cujo off of him. And he starts like yelling at Cujo like he's trying to intimidate him. And he gets up and he goes into his house and he locks the door and he grabs a gun and he starts looking for the bullets. He's like looking through all the drawers, but before he can get any bullets, Cujo straight up jumps through and rips through this screen door that he has, and he runs and he once again jumps up and attacks Gary, and he brings him to the ground, and the struggle ensues until eventually Cujo mauls Gary to death in the hallway of his own home. So we cut to the next day, the sun's come up, and Joe obviously has no idea what just happened, and we see him whistling and calling out for Cujo, and he puts out food for him, and he has no idea where he is. And he ends up going to his friend Gary's house, and he sees the door torn down, that screen door that we saw Cujo tear down. And sure enough, he goes inside, and he slowly walks through, and he finds the mutilated body of his friend Gary. And he starts crying, but then he suddenly gets up, and he looks around, and he goes to pick up the phone, and he's flipping through the phone book. Like, I don't know who he was going to call here, and we never find out, because suddenly Cujo comes in behind him growling, and now he's covered in blood. Like, not his own blood. He's covered in blood from when he mauled this man. And again, mucus and all this shit and disgusting substance running from his eyes, which this, by the way, is made of a mixture of like egg whites and flour, I think it was. It was egg whites and sugar, actually, and the dogs kept licking it off because it tasted so good. So that was one of the many issues that they had on the set of this movie. So it makes it a little better when you realize that's all it is, because let me tell you, this shit looks fucking gross. And I will put pictures up, of course, of this like disgusting looking rabid dog, but it's very unpleasant to look at. So Joe takes one look at Cujo and he realizes, you're rabid. He says it out loud. He's like, oh my God, you're rabid. Like, he knows it immediately. And he tries to calm him down. But then Cujo like keeps growling and coming towards him. So he takes this kitchen table and he flips it at Cujo. But it's to no avail, because eventually we get the POV of Cujo attacking Joe as he falls to the ground. And we don't see him kill him, but he does kill Joe. He kills his owner. So we cut back to Donna, who of course has no idea what's going on at the Camber farm, and she's driving in the car with Tad when suddenly her car light comes on and the car starts stalling again. And eventually she gets to Joe's, because that's where she's going to fix her car, and she gets out of the car and she calls for him, and there's nobody around, and Joe is nowhere to be found, of course, and Tad is struggling because he can't get his seatbelt off. It's stuck. So Donna's going to help him, and she leaves her door open. He's sitting in the passenger seat. Her door is open as she's trying to help him get the seatbelt off. And this is such a fucking beautifully crafted scene, because there's a POV coming towards Donna and you're like, oh shit, it's a POV. Like, this is Cujo. We're Cujo. And it's coming towards Donna, and it kind of stops when it gets like right in front of her, so you can see her and Tad and the passenger side window. And just when you think Cujo is coming in for this way, nope, got you, bitch. He jumps in the fucking passenger side window. It is such a great jump scare, because again, like the misdirection here, like you think it's coming from the other way. Like, even how many times I watch this movie, like it still gets me. I love it. It's so good. So he jumps up in the window, which is half open, and he is just like a feral animal. He's a rabid animal, literally. And he starts like trying to bite at Tad and bite at Donna, and there's like slobber dripping from him. He's bloody, like all this fluid and shit is dripping. He's muddy. He's fucking disgusting, this dog right now. And he's growling and he's biting, and Donna tries to close the window as he's like biting at her, and she struggles, but eventually she's able to shut it like on his face enough that he backs out, and he pulls out of the window, but he runs around to the other side just as Donna closes the door, and he jumps up and he gets like mud and blood all over the windows. He's scratching on the windows, and Tad this whole time is fucking screaming. Poor Tad, like he's terrified, and Donna holds him and tries to calm him down. And this little kid, I don't know if he went on to do any other acting, but I think he does so great in this movie, because at this point, like, you can't convince me that there is not an actual rabid dog attacking this little kid. Like, this kid can't be more than like, I don't know, 6 years old. And the way that he is crying incoherently at this point, but like, it's so real. Like, it sounds like a kid who would cry if something like this happened, and it takes him 3 times to say it for you to understand what he's saying. But he looks at his mom and he's like, how did the monster get out of my closet? And he's like saying it through his tears, like inconsolable, uncontrollable tears from this little kid. And he says, yeah, how did the monster get out of my closet? Which I love that connection there, and I'll talk about that at the end, like how that is connected in the book, because this book is kind of like a sequel, or supposed to be like an unofficial sequel to the book The Dead Zone. So the monster in his closet, there's actually some substance behind that, but we'll get to that later. So Cujo then jumps up, and he jumps on top of the front of the car, and he is scratching and clawing at the windshield, trying to do anything he can to get into this car and get to these people. And poor Tad is just screaming like crazy. And Donna comes up with the idea to beep the horn, which, as we know from earlier, Cujo was having a tough time with loud noises. So that actually works, and he runs away. So they're safe for the time being, but he stays very close by. So Donna holds Tad. She's trying to comfort him, and she's like, we're going to go home. We're going to go home. And she goes to start the car, and sure enough, it doesn't start. Of course it doesn't start. It never starts when you really need it to start. So poor Tad is just like still screaming. This is honestly a very like overstimulating moment, but it's very raw and it's very real, because like your 5-6-year-old kid would absolutely be screaming like this. Like, it's very realistic, and poor Donna is trying everything she can, and he's screaming like, I want to go home. And she has to tell him, we can't go home right now, because she can't start the car. And she's like, we just have to let the engine cool down. And she holds him as he cries. And eventually the camera pans out of the car as she's just trying to hold her hysterical child. And we see Cujo sitting on the porch, just watching the car. Like he's waiting. And he looks absolutely fucking disgusting. And I'm going to keep saying this because somehow he gets grosser. Like he looks gross like the first time we see the mucus all coming out of his eyes and shit. But now it just keeps getting worse. And it's mixed now with like blood and mud. It's absolutely foul. Like it's really gross. And he just looks at the car and he growls. And sometime later we cut back to the car and we see Tad in the back seat and he's like drawing a picture and he asks Donna, like, are we going yet? And Donna is like, okay, like let me try again. And she tries to start the car and it starts and she's all happy and Tad's all happy. And she's like, yep, we're going. And they start driving. Tad gets in the front seat when suddenly Cujo runs out of the shed and starts barking at them as Donna starts to drive away, and she just looks at him and she says, fuck you, dog. But then it's almost like instant karma, which like she had every right to say fuck you, dog, to this rabid animal. And the car stops again. The second she says fuck you, dog, the universe is like, yeah, you're actually not going anywhere. And sure enough, the car stalls again and stops. And at this point, Donna is so frustrated. She screams and she's like hitting the steering wheel and she's trying to start it again. And at this point, she starts crying. And Tad, poor Tad, he's like, are you okay? Like now he's obviously scared, but he sees that his mother is also scared because she's kept relatively cool up until now. And he says, I thought you were mad at me. Like this poor little angel, like it breaks my heart. I thought you were mad at me. And she's like, no, honey, like never you. And then he asks his mother, can he get us in here? Like, can he get us in the car? And Donna says no, but you can tell by her face that she's not entirely sure about that. And we see Cujo just go back into the shed and he's waiting for his next opportunity. So at this point, the sun starts to go down. So the day is ending and we see Cujo approach and he just sits there and he watches the car. Like this thing is literally waiting for his moment to be able to get to these people. And now we cut to the Trenton household and we hear the phone ringing inside and we cut to Vic, who is somewhere off traveling for work. And we see that he's trying to call Donna. He's trying to call his wife and kid. And he kind of like looks suspicious or looks like he thinks something is up when they don't answer. And he ends up going back to dinner. He's sitting there with Roger. And back in the car, it's now nighttime. And Tad tells Donna that he has to pee. And she's like, ugh, like, is it an emergency? He says yes. So we see that Cujo, this motherfucker, like he's a smart dog, rabbit or not, he's laying in front of the car. So like if Donna looks out, she can't see him from her angle. But he is like laying directly in front of, almost underneath the car, and he watches as Donna opens her door and Tad, like, they don't actually get out of the car, but he like leans out to pee. And Cujo is watching this when all of a sudden inside the Camber household, which is right there, the phone starts ringing. And this drives Cujo absolutely fucking wild. Luckily, it distracts him from them and what's going on in the open door. And he instead runs towards the house and starts like aggressively jumping up on the door, scratching on the windows, growling. And Donna watches him do this, and eventually Cujo breaks through the window where the phone is, and the phone stops ringing, so he like chills out. And again, like obviously it's the loud noises that are really pissing him off at this point. Like at first it was annoying him and he would walk away. Now he's going for the loud noises, like he's trying to attack wherever it is. And he ends up going back down in front of the car, and he lays like on the porch and watches the car and once again growls. So they can't leave the car. They are stuck. And now the sun comes up and it's the next day and we see Donna and Tad asleep in the car, and she wakes up and she sees Cujo just staring at her through the window. Like how scary to wake up to this rabid dog just like in your windshield. Like he's like laying and he's just staring dead at her. Like that's fucking terrifying. So back with Vic, he wakes up and he tries to call again, and we once again see the phone just ringing aimlessly at the house, and we know that nobody's coming to answer that phone. And back in the car, we see Donna, and she's opened the window slightly because on top of everything, it's the summer. So you know how fucking hot a car gets that's not running, no AC, and like the window's not open? And she can like barely open the window. She has them cracked because anything else, this fucker is going to try and get through. So you can tell that they're sweating. Now, the funny thing about this movie is when they filmed this, it actually wasn't hot. It was actually very cold. And they had to like put heaters in the car to try and keep the actors from fucking freezing. And I actually think that's almost worse to have to act in the cold, like act that you're hot in the cold, because how do you stop yourself like from shivering and showing that it's actually fucking freezing? So shout out to these actors for that. So as she's opening the windows, Tad is holding his monster words that he's taken with him. And Donna asks like, oh, what is that? And she starts reading them. And Tad asks her if they can have water. They have like a metal water bottle in there. And she's like, we only have a little left, so we need to save it. So on top of like being in the hot car, this dog trying to attack you, the car not starting, now you also have no water and they have no food in here either. Like this is literally like, I can't think of a worse fucking situation. So Donna looks out and she watches as Cujo like circles the car at this point. It's almost like this dog knows that they're gonna have to get out of the car at some point and he's just waiting. And she sees that there is a bat laying in the yard. So her mind, you can tell, kind of starts to be like, okay, there's a bat right there. Like if I can get to that bat, I can fucking do something to this dog. So Tad like makes a comment about like, can we go home now? Like, can you try and start the car again? And Donna's like, I'm afraid to start the car again because the battery is very weak. But Tad asks her to do it again. And she's like, all right, I'll try. And absolutely nothing happens. And now like the horn isn't even beeping. Like she doesn't even have that as a defense. And we see Donna look at the mailbox that they're not far from. And she's like, you know what? When the mailman comes here, we're going to go home, which like, that's great. That's a great idea. Like there's no way he's not going to be able to see you. It's right there. However, we cut to the post office and we see the mailman and his name is like George or something. And he grabs the Camber's mail and he goes to leave when suddenly somebody else stops him and he's like, hey, did you forget we got this? And holds up a notice that says hold mail till notified. And he's like, oh yeah, haha, forgot. He's not going to the Cambers. He's not going. Nobody's coming for you, Donna. So like, again, just when you think it can't get any worse, it just keeps getting worse. It simply does. So we cut back to Donna. She's in this hot car. She's sweating. You can tell her and Tad are both sweating. And she looks at the house and she looks at Cujo and she's like hoping out loud. She's like, get back in the barn, because you think at this point she's going to like make a run for the house to get to the phone. And the phone starts ringing again inside the house and Cujo runs to the house and he looks even grosser somehow. Like he again progressively continues to get more and more fucking disgusting just when you think that can't happen, but he does. And this time, instead of like trying to attack the phone, it makes him so angry that he runs full force at the car and headbutts it. Like he headbutts it in the driver's side door and the car shakes and Donna and Tad start screaming and he rams the door again to the point where like inside the handle falls off, like the handle to open the door falls off. And he jumps up and he starts scratching at the car aggressively and he's trying to like bite through this tiny opening in the window, and inside the phone keeps ringing. You know, like that's what's triggering him. Like that's what's upsetting him, is this loud noise. And eventually he goes around to the passenger side door, and when he jumps up on that one, his paw hits it like apparently in just the right place and the thing shatters. Like it doesn't fully break, but it like spiders. So now like you can't see out of that window. And he bites at the handle and he rips that off. So now you're missing the inside handle on your driver's side and the passenger handle on the outside, on the passenger side. And it's a 2-door car. So what we're getting at here is the map says you're fucked. Like you are fucked. So he jumps up at the windshield, he's scratching at that again, and inside the phone stops ringing. So we know like at least he's going to fucking calm down. And poor Tad is crying, shouting, I want to go home. I want to go home. Donna's trying to comfort him. And we cut back to Vic and we see that he tries the house again to no answer. And he's with Roger and they watch the cereal commercial and they're talking about how they have to start from scratch with the new campaign. And you can just tell that Vic is not into it. He does not care. As these guys are talking, he's like worried about his family. So we cut back to Donna in the car, again, sweating even more now. Tad is asleep. He's all sweaty, like he's taken his shirt off, the poor kid. And Donna takes the handle that broke off inside and she manages to like snap it back onto the door. And she looks around and she slowly opens the car door. And she's looking for him and she doesn't see him. And she slowly gets out of the car. But then we get a POV from underneath the car. And he's fucking watching her. Cujo is hiding under the car on the other side. And he's watching her step out of the car and he is just waiting. And if Donna doesn't see him, so she gets out thinking it's fine and she closes the door and she takes a step and then she realizes, she's like, fuck, what if he's under the car? And she slowly goes to look under the car, but when she looks, nothing's there. but suddenly Cujo is behind her. This motherfucker like outsmarted her, this rabid dog, and he's behind her. And sure enough, he fucking growls and he just charges at her, and he jumps up and he knocks her down, and there's this struggle between the two of them. And Tad wakes up in the commotion and he sees this dog attacking his mother, and she manages to kick him. And again, like the two of them struggle for a while, and she manages to get up and get the door back open, and she gets in the car, but he then jumps on top of her in the car, and he's biting at her. He's like slobbering all over her, which like that would be the most upsetting part for me, is like the fucking slobber and like the mucus and this disgusting fucking fluid that's falling all over me. And she pushes him off, and she gets him off for a minute, but he jumps back. Tad is screaming through this whole thing too. So again, like it's very overstimulating. Like there is so much going on. And Donna grabs the metal water bottle that's in the back seat, and she just starts beating this fucking dog over the head with it. And like obviously in movies I never condone like animal violence, but like that's kind of the whole point of this movie. Like this is the one movie where like I'm not on the dog's side. Like of course I can understand he's rabid, it's not his fault, and like the book makes that even sadder, but like Donna, get him. Like you have to do something. So as she's doing this, as she's beating him on the head, he bites her in the leg, and she screams, and she keeps hitting him with this, even like through her pain and through being bitten, and he tears her skirt off, but eventually he manages to get him outside the door and close the door on him. And poor Tad is screaming. Her leg, she looks down, she's all like bloody and bitten. Her leg is all mangled. And of course, this gives us the implication that like Donna just got rabies. Donna just got bit by a fucking rabid animal. Like she's fucked. Like again, just when you think it cannot get worse, it does not get anything but worse. Like it just keeps getting worse. So Donna cries, and through her tears, she tells Tad, don't get out of the car. Like she realizes she fucked up. She shouldn't have gotten out of the car. And we see Cujo just kind of continue to circle the car. Like at this point, he's gotten a taste and he fucking wants the whole thing. He's circling the car, and she just cries. And eventually she like kind of passes out. And we cut back to Vic, who wakes up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night, and he immediately calls home again. And eventually like he's had enough, and he gets up in the night and he goes to Roger, and he's like, I have to go home. And Roger tries to fight him on it. He's like, we need to fix this. Like we're going to lose our jobs. And at this point, Vic admits that Donna's been having an affair, and now she hasn't answered her phone, and something is very, very wrong here. Like he just knows. And he's like, I have to go back. Like she hasn't answered in 2 days. I'm going home. And Roger still kind of tries to argue with him and get him to stay. He's like, just call the police and have them look. And Vic is like, yeah, no, fuck that. Because Vic is like, above everything, a good dad. Like he's a great husband and he's a wonderful father. So like he's not leaving his kid possibly harmed. So back in the car, we see that it's now nightfall again. So they've been there now for like 2 days pretty much. And Cujo approaches the car again, and he just sits there and he watches. And inside the car, we see Donna tear her shirt, and she uses this to wrap her like bloody, mangled rabies leg. And Cujo slowly gets up on top of the car. Like he just like slightly jumps up on the car, and he looks into the windshield, and he looks down, and he just watches Donna again. Like he literally is just like staring into her soul, watching her. And Donna like keeps his gaze, like stares at him, and she just says, please God, get me out of here. And like this is like, for some reason, that's one of like the most raw moments of this movie for me, because like just like the hopelessness and the fear behind her eyes, it's like a really beautiful, convincing moment. So we eventually cut, the sun rises, so it's again the next day, and Donna wakes up, and the first thing that she sees is Tad breathing heavy, and when she looks down at him, he's having a seizure. His eyes are like rolled to the back of his head, he's clutching his throat as if he can't breathe, he's like trying to like scratch at his throat, and she grabs him and she starts shaking him like helplessly, and she looks at the house. She opens her car door like in a panic, and the second she opens that door, Cujo comes fucking running. So she closes the door immediately, and Cujo's barking, he's scratching at the window again, and she's just trying to get her son to breathe, because Tad, like poor Tad, is like literally clutching at his throat, scratching at his throat, and eventually she kind of like is able to shake him out of it, and he starts to breathe again, and he starts crying, because like now like shit's getting serious, like this is not good. So we then cut back to the Trenton house, which we know is empty, but this motherfucker Steve shows up. Did you forget about Steve? Because he didn't forget about Donna. This sick fuck shows up to the house, and he walks right in, because people keep their doors unlocked in Maine in the fucking 80s, of course. And he walks right in, and he calls out to see if anybody's home. And when he finds that there's nobody home, he takes a knife. And now we cut to Vic, and he drives home, he gets home, and he walks inside to see just an absolute fucking mess. There are are feathers everywhere from where Steve like ripped open a bunch of pillows and like just threw them everywhere. And Vic goes up to his bedroom. He runs upstairs thinking like something happened to my wife and my kid. And of course he doesn't find them there, but he finds everything completely torn apart. Like it's vandalized. Like their bedroom is fucking destroyed. Everything's ripped apart. There's a picture of Donna on the bed ripped up. And in the book, this scene is like much more disgusting and sadistic. Like he like fucking comes on her bed. And like there's just something about that is just so like violating and fucked up because like, and it's made clear that he goes there to attack Donna. And like in the movie, you get rapey vibes from him when he shows up the first time and just starts like grabbing her and kissing her and trying to like pull her underwear off. So like that's what he showed up to do here. And it's just fucking gross. So Vic obviously calls the cops because he's like, it's the sick fuck. Like he did it and he took my wife and my kid. And the cops show up and they're looking around and Vic insists that it was Steve. And the detective points out like, your wife's car is gone. So like if he took her, like would her car be gone? Literally, first of all, worst police department ever. Yeah, actually, that's exactly what I would do if I fucking kidnapped somebody. Like, what do you mean? Like, yes, you want to make it not obvious that you fucking kidnapped somebody, you weirdos. Like, you guys are stupid. But then Vic comes back and he's like, well, her car is in the shop. Like, she brought it out to Joe Camber's. And one of the cops, who this is supposed to be Sheriff George Bannerman, which they never give him a name in this movie. It might be in the credits, but he's an important part, and he was an important part in the Dead Zone as well, which again, this book is supposed to be like kind of an unofficial sequel to. So George Bannerman is like, you know what? I'll go out there and I'll go to Joe Camber's and I'll check and make sure everything's okay. And then the detective is like, we're going to put an APB out on Steve anyway. So like, we'll pick him up. Don't worry. We'll find out. And we cut back to the Cambers, and obviously they're still in the car, and Donna and Tad are both asleep, and Cujo is laying nearby, and we see a cop car approaching in the distance. So we're like, oh, yes, like thank God they're going to be saved. And Cujo also hears this car approaching and he runs away. He runs into the shed, and the cop pulls up and he gets out of the car because he has no fucking idea what's going on. And he sees Donna's car, but he can't see them because they're laying down because they're asleep. So he gets out of the car and he hears a noise in the shed, and he goes to look. And sure enough, when he does, suddenly Cujo jumps out and attacks him. And the sheriff tries to grab his gun, but he drops it, and the struggle ensues as Cujo starts to maul him. And he tries to hit him over the head, but eventually George Bannerman is able to get up. And Donna at this point wakes up and she sees the struggle. And Cujo grabs this guy by the leg and he manages to get away for a second, but he goes for him again. And eventually this guy falls. And Donna is trying to open the car to like go help or do anything that she can. But remember, the handles are off the fucking door and she hasn't snapped it back on again. So she can't get out of her fucking driver's side door. But she does manage to go to the passenger door and get out that way. And as she's doing that, we see Cujo maul this cop to death. He's gone. He's a fucking goner. He's dead. And then after he's done with him, he runs to Donna. So Donna, of course, gets right back into the car, and Tad once again starts gasping for air. Like he's having a seizure again at the worst possible moment. And even Donna is like, oh, please, not now. Like, not now. This guy is getting mauled. The dog's coming for me. And now you're having a fucking seizure again. So Cujo goes back in the shed to like feast on this fucking guy, I guess, since he realizes he can't get to Donna in the car. And Tad eventually comes to, and he starts crying, and this time he's screaming and crying, I want my daddy. He keeps saying, I want my daddy. And Donna just watches as Cujo like eats this man pretty much. And at this point, she's just like so fed up. She screams at Tad and she's like, all right, I'll get your daddy. And like, that is just, I know I said the other thing was like so raw and real. That's probably like the most real moment, like, because she's so frustrated, and like obviously she doesn't want to yell at her own kid, but like she is just so stressed and just done at this moment. She just like screams at him like, okay, I'll get your daddy, but like she knows she can't do that. There's no option. So speaking of daddy, we cut back to Vic and we see that he's home and he's putting away Tad's stuff in his closet when the detective comes in and tells him we picked up Steve, and he claims that he never saw Donna or Tad. And Vic doesn't believe him at first. And the detective is like, listen, he admitted that he trashed the house, and honestly, I believe him. Like, I think that that's all that he did. And Vic asks about the sheriff that went out to the Cambers residence, and the detective is like, yeah, he'll probably be following up with you. Like, I'm sure he'll call. And Vic gets pissed. He's like, nobody's fucking heard from him. Like, are you kidding me? Like, again, worst fucking police department in history. Like, oh yeah, I'm sure he'll call eventually. Like, you didn't think something was up when he was going there and like hasn't called or like reported back. What the fuck is wrong with you people? So Vic takes matters into his own hands and he runs out and he gets in his car and he drives off. And now back at the Camber residence, we see Donna in the car. Tad is once again asleep and he is shallow breathing, barely breathing, it looks like. And they honestly both look like shit at this point. Like, I love like the progression, like the makeup department did fucking great. And it probably also had to do with the fact that Dee Wallace was literally exhausted at this point after what she had to fucking do here. And she looks at Tad and we kind of get a close up of his face and he looks like he's dead and he's like barely breathing, and she starts shaking him and he is not moving, and she like picks him up and she's shaking him more and more, like violently shaking him at this point, and he is not moving. And at this point she realizes like, I'm losing my baby. And she says that out loud. She's like, oh my God, I'm losing my baby. And she's fucking had enough at this point. So she opens her fucking car door because she goes full mama bear mode at this point. And this is like one of the things I love about this movie, like full mama bear. I don't give a fuck. It's like the mothers that lift their cars off babies. Like, she is about to fucking face this rabid dog and she doesn't give a fuck because her baby is not about to die. So she opens the door and she gets out and she starts limping because, like, again, her leg is mauled and fucking bitten. And she starts running to the house because she thinks she's in the clear when suddenly Cujo comes out from under the porch. This motherfucker was hiding on her. And they look at each other and they come face to face. And there's literally this showdown. It's like you see Cujo and then Donna and then Cujo and then Donna. And he's covered in blood and she's all fucking sweaty and covered in blood, and he growls at her and she runs the other way and he runs after her, but this time this bitch is going for the fucking bat. She immediately was like, nope, I'm going for the bat. So she grabs the bat and she fucking swings it at him and she misses the first time, and he kind of like pauses and he just like stands there and looks at her and she's like, come on then. Like, she literally screams at the dog, come on then. And it's like just such an intense moment because she's so fucking done at this point again, and it's like full mama bear mode. And the second she says that, it's almost like he understands and he stares at her and he starts coming for her. He's like, okay. And we get a POV as if we're the dog, which I really love this shot. Like, we get a POV as if we're Cujo and we're running to her, and suddenly she fucking whacks this motherfucker and he like falls over. So she gets him. She hits him with the bat, but he keeps getting up and she keeps swinging and she hits him multiple times. And eventually she hits him to the point where he falls, but he gets up and she swings again so hard this time that the bat fucking cracks in half. Like, bat cracks in half, kind of like Signs. I actually didn't even wear this shirt on purpose, but that happens at the end of Signs. Swing away. So she swings away and this bat snaps in half, which is honestly probably the best thing that could have happened because this motherfucker is still not down. He still gets up and this time he goes to jump on her. But when he does, she takes that piece of the broken bat, like the shards of wood that she has in her hand, and she stabs him, and he finally goes limp and he dies and his lifeless body falls on top of her. So Donna, she's finally fucking made it. She finally killed this rabbit thing, and she cries and she gets up and she grabs the gun. At this point, she has grabbed the gun that the sheriff has dropped. So she grabs that and she aims it at Cujo's lifeless body. But then she realizes like, oh, he's dead. So I got to go get my kid. So she goes to the car and she can't open the fucking door because this one's missing the inside handle. This one's missing the outside handle. And again, she is not fucking around with her kid. So she goes to the windshield, and I love this moment because you see, like, as if we're in the car, her take that gun and she starts like with all her fucking might, just like smashing at that back windshield until it finally shatters and she lets out this like feral, victorious scream. Like, she has been holding this in for days. Like, she lets out this scream. And she grabs Tad and she takes him inside and she puts him on the kitchen table and she like starts putting water on him and putting water in his mouth, and he's completely lifeless. And she's shaking him. She starts to give him CPR. And as this is happening, we see Vic is approaching. Like, they always show up when everything's already said and done. Like, usually it's the cops that happens to, but like, it's always like, oh, you showed up. Like, we're good now. Thanks though. But Vic is coming down the road. He's speeding because he knows that something's up, of course. And Donna, I know I keep saying it, but this is like such a real and raw moment. And this is where like Dee Wallace truly shines, because the way, like, you would think that this is genuinely her child that is dying in her arms. Like, it's like hard to even fathom that one can act like this unless they've experienced it, because the way that she is like screaming at her son to breathe, like, please breathe. And sure enough, he starts breathing. That's it. He wakes up, he starts breathing, and he coughs and he comes to life, and she cries over him and picks him up and hugs him. And this happy music plays, and you think that everybody's safe when suddenly Cujo was not dead, bitch. He was not fucking dead. He bursts through the window behind her into the house, lands in the house, and Donna puts Tad behind her, and she grabs that fucking gun that she still has, and she holds it up and she aims it at this dog and she shoots him, and she finally finishes the job. And we cut to Vic, and he's again speeding down to the farm, and he gets out of his car and he sees Donna's car there, and he sees all the mess and all the blood everywhere, and he screams for her, and he looks up and he sees her carrying Tad out of the house, and he runs to them and he holds Tad, and Donna kind of collapses into his arms, and he grabs them. And the credits roll and the movie ends and everybody was safe. Now, I've been reading Stephen King books for years, so I don't remember every detail about every book that I've ever read of his. I read Cujo years ago, and I, again, don't remember every detail. But one detail that will always stick with me to the point where I remember the exact quote is the end of this book when Vic shows up. Donna has Tad. She thinks that everything's okay, and Vic shows up. And he looks at him and goes, "How long has he been dead, Donna?" He died. Tad dies in the book. And it's it's so fucking devastating. And part of me, honestly, almost wishes that happened in the movie. I know that sounds fucking sadistic and fucked up, but I think I love a hopeless ending. I do. And you guys have probably heard me say that before, but I like an ending that makes you leaves you feeling kind of bleak and emotionless, numb. And that's what this would have been. But the reason that they actually changed it was because Stephen King, even though he didn't accept a writing credit, I don't think, on this movie, he played a big part in writing the screenplay. And he had said that his biggest regret in any of his books was killing off Tad. He actually greatly regretted killing off Tad. So that's why he ended up changing it for the movie and let him live. And honestly, it's probably best that he lived because, again, this kid is so cute, and Donna fought so hard that I think that would have been a really tough ending for audiences, but I think it also would have been more memorable. But yeah, the book pretty much ends with them working together they obviously mourn their son, and they work together to get past Donna's cheating and get past the death of their son. And Donna goes through rabies treatments because, again, she got rabies when she was bitten by the dog. But yeah, I think that would have been a really interesting difference there if they had actually had Tad die. The book, and that's why the book is so memorable to me, because the first time I read that, I didn't know that. And I was genuinely shocked. I specifically remember the line of Vic looking at him and being "How long has he been dead, Donna?" Because Donna didn't even realize that her son was dead. He had died of dehydration and heat stroke. And that's why he was having the seizures and everything. And he almost died, but he ended up coming back to life. But yeah, how long has he been dead, Donna? I'll never forget that. So let's talk about our star and our queen, Dee Wallace, in this movie, because it's crazy that the last few episodes I've done, some of my favorite performances in horror movies ever are 3 movies that I've talked about this month, because it's Kathy Bates in Misery, it's Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie in Carrie, and it's Dee Wallace in Cujo. And Stephen King himself has said that his favorite performance, I remember watching an interview of him saying this. It was in one of those horror countdowns or one of those shows. I don't remember which one, but I think it was Eli Roth's History of Horror, actually. And I remember him saying listen, I know Kathy Bates won an Oscar and she very much deserved it, but my favorite, and I think the best performance in any of my film adaptations, is Dee Wallace in Cujo. It's an incredible performance. And poor Dee Wallace, I've also seen her do an interview for it, and it was possibly in the same show that they were talking about this movie. And she jokingly, but also not jokingly, was the 5 dogs that they used for this movie were actually treated better than I was. And basically she said how when you're acting and you have to constantly be scared like that, your body is in fight or flight, and your body does not know that you're acting. She's doing all this, this is a pretty physical movie. Again, it wasn't in the heat, but it was in it was very cold. And she's having to scream all the time and she's having to fight this dog, like doing like hundreds of takes probably. And after this movie was done, she actually ended up being treated for exhaustion for 3 weeks. Like she was in the hospital, and she said like because of what she went through and like she realized like how far she could push herself. And she said this is the performance that she is the most proud of, which I honestly think that's so fair. It's an incredible performance. And I think she completely got snubbed not even being nominated for this. And again, like the Academy just doesn't appreciate horror movies, because anybody who watched this movie this year would say that Dee Wallace deserved at the very least to be nominated. It's a fucking phenomenal performance. In addition to him thinking that this movie has the best performance of any of his adaptations, Stephen King also thinks that this movie has the best scare of any of his adaptations, and that being the jump scare that I talked about, like the one where it's like misdirecting, like the POV's coming from this way, but then suddenly he jumps up in the passenger window. If it's good enough for Stephen King, it's good enough for me. And I agree. I think that is one of the greatest scares in any of his film adaptations, and just like a very underrated jump scare in general. It's so good. And how did they make the St. Bernards attack the cars, you ask? Because again, St. Bernards are like very docile dogs. They're gentle giants. Like my 4-pound Yorkie is probably more aggressive than a 200-pound St. Bernard. Like my 4-pound family dog would try to attack a 200-pound St. Bernard. They're gentle giants. So they used to they would have to put the dog's favorite toys in the car and kind of like dangle it in front of their face. And that's why he's like jumping up at the car and like scratching at it to try and get his toy. He just wants to play. Now, like I said, in the book, they make like Cujo's demise a lot sadder. By they, I mean Stephen King. He makes Cujo's demise a lot sadder because again, like you're literally in Cujo's brain and he's not understanding what's happening to him. He's not understanding why he's angry and why he wants to attack the person that he loves. It's incredibly upsetting. And there is a theory, or it's kind of like hinted in the book. So like I said, this is like an unofficial sequel to The Dead Zone, which if you're familiar with The Dead Zone, it is about this guy who dies. He slips into a coma pretty much, and he comes back with like these psychic abilities. And he uses those psychic abilities to kind of hunt down this serial killer named Frank Dodd, who is terrorizing Castle Rock, which is a fictional town, one of Stephen King's many fictional towns. But there have been several movies that take place in Castle Rock, and the next one that took place in Castle Rock after The Dead Zone was Cujo. Movies/books it's the books originally that take place in Castle Rock, and then it turns into the movies, of course. But Cujo takes place in Castle Rock like a year or two after the whole Frank Dodd thing happens, and they capture him and he gets killed, whatever. So it's hinted in the book that Cujo, first of all, is possessed by the spirit of Frank Dodd, but that Frank Dodd is also kind of like, he becomes like a legend, like the local like boogeyman. And it's hinted that his spirit or his ghost is what Tad is seeing in his closet. So that's why Tad is so terrified of the closet and says the whole like, oh, I see something with like yellow eyes and yellow teeth. Like he is actually seeing something. And then I think the whole like him possessing the dog is evident when Tad says, how did the monster get out of my closet? And also, George Bannerman, again, is like kind of a massive character in The Dead Zone. Like he's the one that helps capture and kill Frank Dodd. So he escapes a serial killer only to be killed by a dog like a year or two later. And if you're going off that theory, killed by the serial killer still, just in the form of a dog. So rest in peace to Sheriff George Bannerman. Unfortunately, the detective working with you was a fucking idiot, or maybe you could have gotten some help. Who knows? But that's Cujo, ladies and gentlemen. I love this movie. I really love the book. Again, I highly recommend reading the book to really just like put you in Cujo's mindset. It's very sad. It's honestly very upsetting, especially like, again, as an animal lover. It's incredibly sad. But I think it's very well written, and this is one of the books that is very memorable. Again, I still specifically remember one of those final lines, like, how long has he been dead, Donna? That'll never leave my mind. So on Wednesday, we're going to be talking about Pet Sematary, and I think I originally said we were going to do Pet Sematary 1 and 2, but I changed my mind. I'm going to do Pet Sematary, the first one from the 80s, and then the remake from 2019, kind of like we talked about Carrie, because Pet Sematary 2 is just like a spin-off of the first one. It's not an adaptation, and it's Stephen King month. So I want to talk about both movie adaptations and like how they compare to the book and all that. So on Wednesday, we're going to talk about Pet Sematary from the 80s and Pet Sematary 2019, and then we'll go from there. So If you guys haven't yet given me a 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, wherever you're listening to me, it would be greatly appreciated. Helps push me out into the algorithm and find other people to join our lovely little community we have going on here. So until next time, you guys know where to find me. It's horror_chronicles on TikTok and Instagram. I post every day, so you can keep up with me there. And until next time, watch more horror movies and stay spooky, my friends.